In this video, I'm looking back over 2024 and showing some of the videos and stills that I've been particularly pleased with. The images and videos are a mixture of natural history, birds, macro, as well as landscape. At the end of the video, I'll show in reverse order which are my 3 favourite images or clips from 2024. Which do you think are my best? So photographically, 2024 has been a very productive year and I've managed to produce 22 new YouTube videos. I'll put a link to some of these videos featured in the description. 2024 started off with OM Systems releasing their new OM1 Mark II. Fortunately, OM Systems sent me the OM1 Mark II prior to its launch, as well as their new 150 to 600mm lens. I decided to travel down to Emily Nature Reserve in Kent to test out the new kit. This clip is of a kestrel in flight, and it was taken handheld out of the side window of my car using the new camera and lens. This kestrel was hovering, so it was in the same spot, and once I had a few stills, I shot some video. The video was shot at 120 frames per second slow motion, and I was pleased how it came out and how the lens performed. A few weeks later, I went to RSPB Wallasey to try for the short-eared owls. Again, I was using the OM1 Mark II, but this time I was using my own 150 to 400mm lens with the 125 extender. This clip of a short-eared owl in flight was again shot in slow motion at 120 frames per second, and with slow motion you get a completely different feel to the clip than if it was shot at normal speed. In February, I went away for a few days in Norfolk photographing birds, with barn owls being the main quarry. I was particularly pleased with this shot of a barn owl in flight. This particular barn owl proved to be a real star, and 3 mornings running it flew close enough for me to get frame-filling shots. As well as photographing barn owls, I also went to Titchell and Skye to photograph waders. I made a YouTube video on this trip and I'll put a link to that in the description. In March, I went away on a photographic trip to Skye and Torridon. This trip was with Quest Photographic, which is now run by Tom Peck. Skye has always been a location that I wanted to visit, and fortunately we had reasonable weather for most of the trip. On the way to Skye we stopped at Glencoe, and I was pleased with this shot taken with the OM1 Mark II and the 8 to 25mm lens. It's handheld at 1 second to get a little bit of motion on the water, and I'm laying down on the bank by the side of the river, holding the camera out just a couple of inches above the water, and I'm composing the picture with the flip out screen. Because it was my first visit to Skye, Tom took us to all the well-known and tried locations. This sunrise shot was a short walk from the hotel where we stayed at Slishigan for the first 3 days. It's a 7-stop bracket exposure to ensure I obtain detail in both the sky and the foreground. This shot is the fairy pools on Skye. It's a well-known location that's been photographed many times before. The fact that the fairy pools is a well-known spot and has been shot many times before should not deter other photographers from photographing from the same viewpoint. Although I shot the image in colour, it does lend itself equally well to a mono conversion. This shot was in Torridon on the final day of our trip. We'd all sat in the van for over an hour waiting for the pouring rain to stop, and when it finally did, the light improved and we all got out and took some of our best shots from the trip. I promised myself at the start of 2024 that I would try to venture into other genres of photography, and one area that I've been photographing recently is live groups at a local venue. The advantage of small venues is it's easier to get access and groups are usually very pleased to have the photos. This was the lead singer of a group called Forged in Black, and as well as sounding good, he was visually very photogenic. I used the OM1 and the 12 to 40mm f2.8. I was shooting on manual, aperture wide open at f2.8, shutter speed set at 200th of a second and ISO set on auto. The next still and video clips are of turtle doves photographed at a farm in Essex. I was very fortunate to be allowed access to this location, and I photographed the turtle doves from a small canvas hide that I was allowed to put up. These two turtle doves had been sitting on the post and the barbed wire, and then something startled them and they both took flight. Because I had ProCap SH2 running, as they flew off, I fully pressed the shutter button and obtained a whole sequence of shots of them in flight. I was pleased with this shot to get both birds in focus. I think the post, the barbed wire and the spider's web add an extra element to the picture. This slow motion video clip was taken on the same afternoon, about an hour later. Fortunately, the turtle doves were sitting and resting, one on the post and two either side on the barbed wire, so it made a nice composition. It started to rain, and after taking a few stills, I pressed the red record button for video. With the birds being stationary and the slow motion movement of the rain, it gave a wonderful effect. At this location, I also had the opportunity to photograph a family of fox cubs. The cubs were about half grown and getting fairly confident, and it was fascinating watching them coming out to play. The cubs' den was not in a location where I could set up a hide and leave it there, so I used a ghillie suit and camouflage netting to disguise myself. I may have looked a bit daft, but they never knew I was there. And because I positioned myself against a bramble hedge, I tended to blend in very well with the background, and the cubs took absolutely no notice of me. This shot of a male banded demoiselle is an image I've always wanted to get. Although I have other shots of damselflies in flight, this was the first time that I'd managed to get a shot of one head on, with both the eyes and all four wings in focus. So I was overjoyed when I saw this on the back of the camera. It was taken at a river in Suffolk, and I was using the OM1 Mark II with the 150 to 400 plus 125 extender. I show the location, how it was taken, in this YouTube video. The link will be in the description. This shot is when I went to the pinnacle at Sandy in Bedfordshire to photograph Beowulf wasps in flight. Not the easiest of shots to take. I used the OM1 Mark II and the 90mm macro lens. For this sort of image you need to lie down on the ground to get a low viewpoint. I explain and show how this shot was achieved in this video. The next shot is a kingfisher in flight. Kingfisher shots are relatively common these days, mainly because there are numerous paid-for hides around the UK where it's possible to get amazing shots of kingfishers diving. These shots were not taken at a paid-for hide, but at the Mere Hide at RSPB Lakenheath. It's a public hide and a good place to photograph kingfishers, and although it's not set up for diving kingfishers, you can get good flight shots here. Rather than my normal 150 to 400mm, I used for this shot my 40 to 150 2.8, because the bird was on a perch only a few feet away from the hide. It was just a case of waiting for the bird to fly from one perch to another, and using ProCap SH2, I obtained a whole series of shots as it took off. Once again, I made a video of this and I'll put a link in the description. At the end of October, we went away for a week to the Northumberland Coast. Most mornings I rose early for sunrise, and I visited both Embleton Bay as well as Bamburgh Castle. My normal approach for seascape is to find a strong foreground interest, use a wide angle lens, point the camera out to sea and do a slow shutter speed shot as the tide comes in. Usually shutter speeds of between half a second and 2 seconds give a nice effect. When doing these type of shots you need Wellington boots because often the best shots are when the water is lapping around your ankles. This shot of Bamburgh Castle was slightly different because on this occasion I'm not pointing the camera out to sea but back towards the castle, so the waves are coming in behind me. It's then a case of waiting for the wave to come in, wait for it to pass you and then press the shutter as the wave starts to recede back out. The problem with looking inland rather than out to sea is that you cannot see if a freak wave is coming in, and you run the risk of water going over the top of your wellies, as I found out to my cost. So which of these are my favourite 3? It was quite difficult to decide and I changed my mind quite a few times. But in third place I chose the clip of the kestrel in flight. There is just something about watching a bird in flight in slow motion, and it certainly comes over with this clip. In second place, the shot of the male banded demoiselle in flight. I'd taken hundreds of shots where I've had the front wings in focus, or maybe 3 or 4 of the wings in focus, but the eyes not in focus. But when I saw this, with both eyes sharp and all 4 wings in focus, I knew I'd nailed it. So which is my favourite for 2024? Well, I decided in the end on the video clip of the turtle doves in the rain. There is just something about the slow motion effect with the rain has in the video. Turtle doves are certainly not to a penny, so to actually get 3 in the same shot was really sort of the icing on the cake. So do you agree with my selection? Probably not, but please comment on which ones you like the best. To finish, I just want to thank all the people who watched my videos, subscribed and commented over the year. I do try to answer everyone. So best wishes for 2025 and thanks for watching.